Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So it's November 19th, 2024, Krishna Balaram Temple in Vrindavan, and we're going to be reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 67, Balaram slays Vidvida Gorilla, texts 14, 15, and 16. So 14's on the board. Tam gravna praharat krudo, bala praharatam vadaha, savanchatitva gravanyam, madira kalasham kapi. Okay, the next verse is Grihitva helayam asha, durtastam kopayam hasan, nir bidha kalasham dusto, vas am yashpalayad balam, kadarti kritya balavan, viprachakre madodata. Tam, add him, dvidvida, gravna, a rock, praharat, through, krudaha, angry, balaha, Lord Balaram, praharatam, of throwers of weapons, vadaha, the best, saha, he dvidvida, vanchayitva, avoiding, gravanam, the rock, madira, of liquor, kalasham, the pot, kapihi, the ape, gritva, seizing, helayam asha, made fun of, durtaha, the rascal, tam, him, Lord Balaram, kopayan, angering, hasan, laughing, nirbidya, breaking, kalasham, the pot, dustaha, wicked, vasamshi, the garments of the girls, ashpalayat, he pulled at, balam, Lord Balaram, kadarhi kritya, disrespecting, balavan, powerful, viprachakre, he insulted, mada, by false pride, udhataha, puffed up, BBT translation, angered, Lord Balarama, the best of fighters, hurled a rock at him, but the cunning ape dodged the rock and grabbed the Lord's pot of liquor, further infuriating Lord Balaram by laughing and by ridiculing him. Wicked Vidvida then broke the pot and offended the Lord even more by pulling at the girl's clothing. Thus the powerful ape, puffed up with false pride, continued to insult Sri Balaram. So there's no BBT purport here. We're going to go on to text 16. Translation, Lord Balaram saw the ape's rude behavior and thought of the disruptions he had created in the surrounding kingdoms. In other words, he wasn't just bothering Balaram and the women. He had been causing a lot of criminal activities for a long time. Thus the Lord angrily took up his club and his plow weapon, having decided to put his enemy to death. BBT purport. The word avinayam means without humility. Vidvida, completely lacking in modesty and humility, shamelessly performed the most wicked activities. Lord Balaram knew of the great disturbances Vidvida had caused to people in general, apart from the vulgar behavior the ape was exhibiting in the Lord's own presence. The offensive ape would now have to die. So I'd like to look at a commentary of Srila Sanatana Goswami. So for text 14 and 15, his commentary is, though Balaram was the best among fighters because of his strength, and though angry, he struck the ape with a rock, not his club, because of the ape's previous bhakti. So do you remember, anyone remember who Dvidvita was previously? He was Sugriva's minister. So he used a rock and not his club out of respect that Dvidvita had been a devotee. The ape's bad behavior is described. Quickly the ape avoided the rock and attacked. The rascal made Balaram angry and laughed at him. The ape was wicked because he pulled the clothing of the women. He insulted Balaram, who had the greatest strength, Balam, since he was completely overcome by pride. This was because he was strong. Sanatana Goswami writes for text 16, in quotes, Balaram should have tolerated his bad behavior, since previously he was a devotee, unquote. The ape had disrupted the kingdoms. Thus Balaram became angry. He took up his club with a desire to kill the ape who was inimical to him. I want to look at also Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary. This is for 14:15. He made Balaram angry by laughing at him, or he made Balaram angry, and on seeing his anger, he laughed. So either his laughter made Balaram angry, or Balaram's anger made him laugh. He further offended Balaram, though Balaram had more strength. He continually harassed the women because he was ill-behaved from pride. He behaved improperly because he was strong. Another meaning of udata as a pun is extremely defeated. So it can mean strong or extremely defeated. And Srila Jiva Goswami's commentary on text 16, Balaram considered his rudeness and his disturbance to the country. This verse again mentioned that he was angry. He was even angrier. So I want to look a little bit at anger here, because it's mentioned, I think, 3 times in these verses that Balaram was angry. And all of us have to deal sometimes with anger, correct? Anybody here never have any anger? Right? So we have anger because the Lord has anger. Balaram has anger. He's the Lord, and Mamaivam so Jiva Loke, Jiva Bhuta Sanatana. We're part of the Lord, so we also have anger. But our anger is very destructive. Am I correct? Yes? Our anger is a real problem. So we're going to look at the problems with anger and how we can get free from anger. And then we're going to look at the Lord's anger, especially Balaram, a little bit Krishna, but especially Balaram. And finally, we're going to look at anger as a rasa. What is transcendental anger? Of course, is enjoyed by the Lord, but also by the Lord's devotees. So what's the problems with anger? Well, what does Krishna say? Those famous verses, 262, 263. What's the result of anger? Delusion, right? Does this resonate with all of us? Do we become deluded when we're angry? Loss of memory. Do we forget everything? No matter how many slokas you know, how much philosophy we know, when we get angry, we don't remember any of it. We're just angry. And loss of intelligence. Do we lose our intelligence when we're angry? And then fall down. We end up doing things that are wrong. We do things that are sinful. We do things that are contrary to our own desires, contrary to our own integrity. When Arjuna asked Krishna, why do I feel forced to do against my will things that I know are wrong? Have you asked this question also? Why don't I always do what I want to do? Why do I watch things I shouldn't watch and do things I don't want to do and eat things I shouldn't eat and say things I shouldn't say? And I know it's like I shouldn't eat that other cheesecake. And you eat it anyway. Why? And Krishna says it's lust. And this is very much related to anger. If we do that under lust, how much more so do we do that under anger? Saying and doing things that when we're not angry, it's like, I never want to do that. I never would say that. I would never do that. Now, there's actually a physiological side to anger. So anger arises in a conditioned soul with a material body whenever we feel threatened, whenever we think there's going to be some danger. So this body and mind are a machine. The mind is also a machine. And the mind, or we could say the brain, is programmed by a kind and merciful Lord, whether Krishna did it or Lord Brahma, I don't know. But they programmed it that whenever we feel threatened, we are prepared, what? For fight or flight, correct? Yes? And fight means anger. And we can feel threatened not only by barking dogs or, monkeys making faces at us and threatening our glasses and bead bags, but we can also feel threatened by other people. And not just another person who says, I'm going to hit you, but even someone who says, you're really foolish, can feel very threatening to us. Because we're social creatures and we depend on our social network for food and shelter. So if we think someone's disrespecting us or insulting us or doesn't like us in some way, we can feel threatened and become angry. Or we can also become angry at the loss of something we think is necessary for our life. Yes, like lust leads to anger. Why? Because there's things we think we need and we don't get them. We become angry. Or things we get and they're not what we wanted. This is not what I ordered. This is not what I wanted. Or we lose something that's valuable to us. Now, when this fight or flight response happens in the body, it releases stress hormones called like cortisol and adrenaline. And when you're going to fight, that's not the time to do calculus equations. You understand? So these hormones, these chemicals in the body, they actually cut off our higher thinking abilities. They pause our digestion, they pause our immune system, and they also pause our higher intelligence so that we can just like run away. And these feelings in our body we interpret as anger. Now, it's interesting that Krishna lists so many demoniac qualities in the 16th chapter, but then he says, 3 of them really, Trividam Narakashedam Dwaranasanamatmana. Right? He says these things, they destroy the soul. You should walk away from this lust, anger, and greed. And it's interesting, there's like a whole list of a funny genealogy in 4th canto, chapter 8, text 2-3, where it says that irreligion and falsity create pride and cheating, which leads to greed and cunning, which leads to anger and envy, which leads to Kali Yuga. So it's a serious problem for us. And even great sages, the Bhagavatam is full of stories. The king who ended up becoming Gajendra, who was that sage? That was Agastya. So the sage is in meditation. He's not answering me. Become an elephant. What about Vishvamrita? All right, first he has a lust fall down, and then he has an anger fall down. When Ramba comes, he gets angry. And we have so many examples. And Vasistha and Vishvamrita, they were fighting so much, they cursed each other to become birds. And Prabhupada says they were fighting for thousands of years as birds. Imagine that. These are great sages. I mean, Vasistha was so powerful, he just raised his Brahmin staff and all these weapons came out of it. And he gets angry at Vishvamrita. And we have just so many examples of these sages that just lose their intelligence and curse somebody, often over a small thing, right? Durvasa is ready to kill Ambarish because Ambarish drank some water. You drank water, I'll kill you. I mean, like, really disproportionate. Correct? Can you imagine you visit some host and they drink water and you're ready to, would you kill them over that? So what are we going to do about this? Now, generally, when we get angry, we don't think we're getting angry just because we're feeling fearful and offended. And we don't usually think like that. We usually think we're getting angry for some higher principles, correct? We have all these interesting stories that we tell ourselves about our anger and justifying our anger. Well, I'm doing it for Prabhupada and Krishna. That's a good one. And, I'm doing it for something, for my family, or, that's. And Prabhupada talks about often how in Kali Yuga people fight just to fight. They get angry over nothing, and they fight just to fight. And my own conviction is one of the biggest reasons that we don't have more people joining the Krishna consciousness movement is that we splatter our anger all over the internet. If you do anything with devotees, I'm terrified on social media to post anything that might be slightly controversial, because I have a lot of non-devotees who look at my pages. Right? I've met a lot of non-devotees. Oh, I read anything you post, and I'm thinking, if I post anything that's not totally insipid, you know what insipid is? Like lukewarm milk without sugar, or unsalted rice without butter. If I post anything other than that, there's going to be all these things in the comments. And people are just going to say, what's wrong with you people? Yes. So what are we going to do about this? How are we going to deal with this? And I'm sure we've all tried to deal with this in many ways. I'm sure we've all tried to deal with it by repressing it. Does that work? Does repressing anger work? Very temporarily. And that's useful very temporarily. If you really want to punch somebody, probably repress it for a few seconds. That's probably a good idea. But on the long haul, it doesn't work. It comes up again. All that repressed stuff just kind of builds up inside you, and then it comes up again. So I knew one married couple, 10 years, happily married, 5 kids, and then one day the wife exploded like a volcano or an earthquake. She had been repressing this little anger and this little anger and this little anger for 10 years, and when it exploded, there was nothing her husband could do about it. It was just too much, and it destroyed the whole marriage. So repressing anger doesn't work. It will come out again in some form. It will cause a fall down, like Krishna is saying. But we do read, and this is one of Radhanath Swami's favorite quotes, this is from the story of Bhrigu Muni, that one's greatness has to be estimated by one's ability to tolerate provoking situations. And I'm sure you all know this story, how Bhrigu Muni was deputed by the demigods to find out who is the greatest. And he did this by insults. Because again, we are going to interpret insults as threatening, and we're going to respond with anger. Right? So first he threatens Lord Brahma. He's Lord Brahma's son, and he doesn't greet him respectfully. Now, to those of us from countries like America, this may not mean anything to us. My children, when they come to see me, they don't offer obeisances. I hope this doesn't shock all of you Indians, but anyway. So if my kids came to see me and didn't offer obeisances, I wouldn't feel insulted. But Lord Brahma felt very insulted, and he had very great difficulty to control his anger. And then he went to his brother, Lord Shiva, and he insulted him verbally. He said, "You're dirty, you're covered with crematorium ashes, I'm not going to hug you." And Lord Shiva was ready to kill him. He was stopped by his wife. And then he comes in and offends Lord Vishnu corporally by kicking Lord Vishnu's chest. And the Lord just said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Did my hard chest hurt your foot? I'm sorry I didn't get up to greet you. Please excuse me." And that's when the statement comes, when greatness has to be estimated by one's ability to tolerate provoking situations. We can all be not angry when nobody is provoking us. So here the Lord demonstrates his freedom from anger. And there's a really nice prayer about Govardhan, how Govardhan, he's being attacked by the lightning of Indra, and he doesn't even notice it. He's so much relishing that Krishna's hand is touching him, that he's just in so much bliss that he's just not responding at all. He doesn't even, he's unaware of it. We can also think how Krishna's dealing with Indra's insult. He doesn't attack Indra at all. Like I think about how, when Chaivana Muni, when he let the Ashwini Kumaras drink the Somaras, and Indra was very angry, and he goes to kill him, and Chaivana Muni paralyzes Indra's arm. Right? But Krishna doesn't do that to Indra. He doesn't paralyze Indra's arm. He doesn't neutralize the Samvartika clouds. He just lifts up a mountain, which is a very strange way of dealing with a flood, by the way. Usually in a flood, you go to the top of the mountain. You don't just get an umbrella for a flood. But so Krishna does this very unusual behavior and just kind of like, whatever, Indra, just do whatever you want to do. And he's just extremely tolerant. He's very tolerant with Lord Brahma, who steals all of his friends. He doesn't, with Indra, he puts him back in his post. He says, you can go back and be Indra again, although you just tried to kill all my devotees and tried to flood Vrindavan. He's just not affected by this. So this is the way to become free from anger, is to not be affected by it at all. Now, having said that, keep in mind that it's not possible to turn off the physiological system, nor would you want to turn off the physiological system. We don't want to turn that off. We want to be able to respond to a car coming down the road, correct? You don't want to just be, well, I'm just not affected by anything. I'm going to walk in front of a car. That wouldn't be useful. So we don't want to turn off that system any way we can't. That's not something that we can do. But what we can do is not identify with it. And that's the recurring theme throughout the Shastra. So right after Krishna gives this fall-down sequence in 262-63, he says a verse, and I've heard rumored that you really like this verse because it had the word Bhagavat Prasad in it. That's the rumor on the ground, that you'd like to sing this verse before Prasadam. Yeah, you. But I always tell people it's not really about samosas. Right? It says if you become free from attachment and aversion and you regulate your senses, you'll get Bhagavat Prasad. Which again, doesn't mean like chapatis. So the two things, on a mental level, to be free from attachment and aversion, then on a gross level, to regulate the senses, and then Krishna helps you. He'll give you his mercy. He'll help you. So regulating the senses, that's pretty easy to understand. One way to become detached, if I eat at regulated times and I sleep if I have a regulated life, I'm less likely to become disturbed by things in the world. We all have experience with that. But then becoming free from attachment and aversion means that when these physiological changes happen in the body, that we don't identify with them. We neither are attached to them and thinking, yes, I have a right to be angry because of this and this and this and this and this and this and this. Or no, I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't be angry. It's wrong to be angry. Anger is a gate leading to hell. Let me not be angry. So that's attachment and aversion. We see the attachment in the fight between Bhima and Duryodhana, when Balaram, ironically, the same Balaram, shows up and tells them, hey, cool it, guys. Why are you fighting? The war is basically over. It's done. And Duryodhana is more skilled and Bhima is more strong. Like, this isn't going to work. But both Duryodhana and Bhima were doing what's called anusmaram, which is a very interesting word. Smaran means to remember, anu means to follow, or remembering again and again and again and again and again. He insulted me. He tried to kill me. He insulted me. He tried to kill me. He insulted me. He tried. And so they couldn't hear Balaram and they were fighting. So these are our two usual responses. Either anusmaram, and this, he did this 5 years ago, and he did this 10 years ago, and he did this yesterday, and what about this over here? And I have a right to be angry, and I'm going to be angry. And this anusmaram, or trying to stop it. I hate anger. I don't want anger. Anger is bad. I'm getting rid of anger. And either way, we're holding it, yeah? So I'm holding the anger and kind of massaging it, my anusmaram, or I'm trying to hold it like that. And either way, I am holding it. So to be free from attachment and aversion means that you step back and say, oh, this is an interesting biochemical reaction in my body that is very kindly arranged by the Lord for my protection from packs of dogs and glaring monkeys. Thank you, dear Lord. Now, if we do that, the biochemical reactions go in 90 seconds, which sounds very fast, but when you're experiencing it, it may not feel very fast. And just to watch it come and go. And Krishna talks about this also in 270. What's the metaphor he gives? Anybody know from 270? Like a river going into an ocean. You ever seen a river going into an ocean? And the ocean it just lets the river go. It doesn't embrace the river. It doesn't try to stop the river. It has its own business. The ocean is so deep and so profound that it's unconcerned with all these rivers entering. So just to be unconcerned. Now, we all know how to do this. I'm sure everyone in this room has fasted. Yes? You've all observed a fast at some point? And I'm sure while you were fasting, you sometimes saw food. Am I correct? By the way, going food shopping when you're fasting is probably not a very good idea. But we've all seen food while we are fasting. And if you're fasting, like, I'm sure many of you have done like even a Nirjal fast. Yes? So my experience with Nirjal fasting is by about 11 in the morning, my body says, you didn't feed me. Hello, hello. You didn't feed me. But if you ignore it, if you say, well, I'm fasting today, then after about 20 minutes, it kind of fades. And then somewhere around 2 or 3 in the afternoon, my body goes, hello, hello. You haven't given me anything to drink today. Hey. And if you say, well, I'm fasting, again, 10, 15, 20 minutes it goes. And if you're doing an all-nighter also, then at about 1 or 2 in the morning, your body says, hey, sleep, sleep. And you're like, no, I'm fasting. And then it fades. Yes, we've all had this, everyone has had this experience? Yes? You don't hate the hunger sensations. You don't go, oh my God, I'm feeling hunger. You don't say, I'm feeling hunger, I gotta eat, I can't fast anymore. And nor do you say, it's terrible, I'm feeling hunger. You're like, well, that's normal. If I'm fasting, then naturally there's going to be hunger sensations arising in my body. Am I correct? Yes? So it's the same thing. I have a physical body. My physical body is designed in a way to give me protection. And so naturally these feelings are going to arise in my body. They're part of Krishna's energy. And there's so many wonderful things said about people who are free from anger. There's the Sita D. Muni in 256, who's free from attachment, fear, and anger. They're all connected. I'm angry because my attachments aren't being satisfied. I'm angry because I'm afraid of my enemy. And in 410, Krishna says those who are free of attachment, fear, and anger can properly take shelter of Krishna. And in the 16th chapter, where he said, don't go through those gates to hell, he lists freedom from anger as a divine quality. Again, please don't read those verses and think that that means that the people being described don't have any physiological sensations. If we're waiting, well, I'll be free from anger when I no longer have any physiological sensations, you're going to be waiting a very long time. A very, 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 very long time. In 14:22 to 25, when Krishna says, who's above the modes of nature, he says, those who do not hate attachment, illumination, attachment, and delusion when they appear, nor long for them when they disappear, knowing that the modes alone are active, always remaining neutral. And Prabhupada says in the purport that as long as we have a physical body, these reactions are going to come, but the devotee remains neutral. So that's one way to conquer anger, and that's a way also used, by the way, by the impersonalists and the voidists. So people nowadays teaching different forms of meditation, different forms of Gyan Yoga, they are also going to teach this kind of detachment. But we have yet a more wonderful technique of spiritual life that is not available to the impersonalists and the voidists, by which we can conquer anger by meditating on transcendent anger. Because whatever is here has its equivalent in transcendence. And this is an opportunity offered only to the personalists. If you're very much in sattva gun, you may be able to be detached from anger by being an observer most of the time, but we see even these great sages who can't do it all the time. Some Rajas and Tamas comes in for a minute and then, you drank water, you die. But if we actually are absorbed in the Lord's anger, what happens is we get the taste of real anger, in comparison to which material anger becomes completely nothing. It becomes like I once saw a video of an animal trying to eat a picture of food. It becomes like that, like a piece of cardboard. We can see in comparison that there's no real rasa in this material anger. All right, so these verses are talking especially about Balaram's anger. And so I thought we'd look at one place that I always have found fascinating that's related to Balaram. This is from Canto 5, Chapter 25, The Glories of Lord Ananta, Text 3, Purport, where Prabhupada writes that Ananta gets angry and Rudra comes from between his eyebrows. And he writes, quote, in each creation, the living entities are given a chance to close their business as conditioned souls. Did you realize we were running a business? When they misuse this opportunity and do not go back home, back to Godhead, Lord Sankarshan becomes angry. The 11 Rudras, expansions of Lord Shiva, come out of Lord Sankarshan's eyebrows due to his angry mood, and all of them together devastate the entire cosmos. So it's like Lord Balaram, as Sankarshan, is saying, hey, we gave you this material world so you could go back to Godhead. Stop your conditioned soul business already. And, they don't do it. All these days of Lord Brahma are going by, and all these incarnations are coming, and all these sadhus are coming, and they're still not closing their business. And they're like, enough. Finished. Very similar to what's happening here with Dvidvita. Dvidvita was a devotee. Just this morning, coincidentally, I like to listen to a Prabhupada class almost every morning. And Prabhupada was talking about the Apichet Sucharacharo verse, and he was saying, this is not for intentional sins. He said, the devotee cannot be sinful. So you cannot say he's a devotee and he's sinful. That this is for accidental, with not premeditated. So Balaram's looking, okay, here's Dvidvita, all right, he was a devotee, he was Sugriva's minister, but now look at what he's doing. He's plundering, he's raping, he's kidnapping, he's causing havoc everywhere, he's insulting these girls I'm with, it's just too much. He may have been my devotee, but now enough. And of course, Balaram's like this also with Rukmi. This is such a funny Leela because when Krishna was ready to kill Rukmi, Balaram intercedes. And he says, now he's our brother-in-law, he's a family member, give him a break, and maybe you can just insult him, but don't kill him. And then, when Rukmi accuses him of cheating at the wedding, and he keeps accusing him, finally again, Balaram's like, enough. Finished. I also find it amusing that Prabhupada said that such things were not uncommon in Kshatriya weddings. That is a detail of Varnashram that we should not implement in 2024. Okay? Principles of Varnashram, yes. Details, not always. We have Balaram's acting like this with the Yamuna. Right? When he's dancing with his gopis in Vrindavan, and he says, hey, come over here. We want to bathe in you. And she's like, I don't know. It looks like you drank a lot of Varuni. I think I'm going to stay over here. And he's calling her, and he says, you come here now. Right? And, of course, we have Krishna sometimes gets very angry also. I was thinking, of course, about Nrsimhadev, who becomes extremely angry at Hiranyakashipu, the first child abuser in the universe. Right? He's kind of the main deity of the CPO. They particularly worship Lord Nrsimhadev, or even Mahaprabhu with Jagai and Madhai, where it's like, enough, you don't hit Lord Nityananda. But it's very interesting. Another thing that I've always found very interesting is with Asvatthama, when Arjuna is going to arrest Asvatthama. Now, Asvatthama has just killed the 5 sleeping sons of Draupadi. The war is already over. You know, there's no profit. The war is over. Just out of meanness, he does this heinous activity. And Arjuna promises Draupadi, you can take your bath standing on his head. So Arjuna goes to get Asvatthama and arrests him. And Krishna is there, and both Krishna and Arjuna are angry. But Arjuna has eyes that are like red-hot copper, and Krishna has lotus eyes. And Srila Prabhupada writes there that the anger of the Lord is different from the anger even of a living entity like Arjuna. He says that whoever the Lord gets angry at is blessed, that his anger and his pleasure are the same. So it may look to us like our material anger, where I may tolerate something for a while and then, okay, enough. And then we explode with anger. It may look like that. Balaram's tolerating Dvidvita or Rukmi or the Jamuna, or Nrsimha tolerates actually a lot from Hiranyakashipu. And then finally, like, enough. And we may think it's like that, but it's not. It's really another taste of their blessing, another taste of their enjoyment. It's fascinating that in 3:16:31, when the Lord tells Jai and Vijay to come to the material world, he says, do samramba yogena, practice yoga in anger. So there is an anger rasa, which the Lord enjoys. He's called Akila Rasamrita Murti. He enjoys all kinds of rasa. You know, we try to enjoy material anger. People do try to enjoy material anger. They do. That's why there's sporting competitions. Did you ever wonder why there's sporting competitions? It's a huge multi-billion-dollar business. There's some chivalry rasa also. Definitely, there's some chivalry rasa, but there's also some anger rasa. Am I correct? Yes? I was once visiting a devotee's home, and their, I don't remember, like teenage probably son was watching some sporting competition, just him alone watching on the television. And I walk through the room, and he stands up and starts shaking his fist and yelling at the television set about the sporting game. This is also why people go to political rallies and protest marches. Please don't think that people are really invested in these teams. That's not what's going on. And please don't think that people are really invested in the political positions. Again, generally they're not. It's an excuse to try to enjoy anger. But material anger is not enjoyable. It simply is polluting and exhausting and makes us all into fools. But there is an original anger that is enjoyable. So I don't have time to explore this in depth. I actually have a whole PowerPoint on the anger rasa. And there, Srila Rupa Goswami, he talks about that there's 3 objects of anger. Because for every rasa, there's an object, there's a vishaya, And then ashraya, there's the devotee who feels away. So there's three objects. One, you can be angry at Krishna. Another is you can be angry at people who are friendly to Krishna. And another is you can be angry at people who are unfriendly to Krishna. So who gets angry at Krishna? So this is pretty much all the women. Only the women get angry at Krishna. So that's the young girls get angry at Krishna when he says he's going to show up at 6 at night and he doesn't show up until 4 in the morning. And then when he shows up, he's disheveled, like Srimati Radharani asks Krishna, "Where are your clothes?" And he says, "Oh, my residence is in your beautiful eyes." And she says, "I wasn't asking about your residence, I was asking about your clothes." And he says, "I have this fragrance by being close to you," because the word vasa can mean clothes or residence or fragrance. And then she said, "Where did you spend the night?" And he's like, "How could night kidnap me?" And then she stops being angry at him. But she was angry. So the gopis get angry. Sometimes what Prabhupada calls the elderly gopis, which doesn't mean they're my age. It means they're more like in their 30s. And they may get angry at Krishna because of his improper behavior with the young girls. You know, "Krishna, why are you bothering my daughter-in-law?" And they become angry with Krishna. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami explains that when the young girls are angry with Krishna, it's not really, any of you who are interested in the technicalities of this, it's not really a secondary sthai bhav, but it's actually a vyavichari bhav. Then there's those who get angry at those who are friendly, the other devotees. So they get angry at them if they don't protect Krishna. Or if they put Krishna into danger. Like Mother Rohini and Nanda Maharaj, they got angry at who? Who did they get angry at for not properly protecting Krishna? Yasoda. Why are you tying Krishna up with these big trees next to him? They were angry. You're supposed to be protecting him. And Mother Yasoda got angry at the cowherd boys. Why are you taking Krishna to dangerous situations? You know there's some demon over there. Why are you taking Krishna there? Why are you doing this to Krishna? Right? Then there's getting angry at the unfriendly persons, and that's what we're looking at here, like Dvidvita or Shishupal. Of course, the residents of Vrindavan also get angry at Akrura. We just went to a series of classes by Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj about how Akrura exemplifies the mood of entering Vrindavan. But the residents of Vrindavan get very angry at Akrura. They consider him unfriendly. You're interfering with my ability to serve Krishna. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami expounds on this anger rasa, particularly the first category, being angry at Krishna, in his Ujjwala Nilamani. And this is also beautifully explained by Swarup Damodar to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in Madhya 14, starting with verse 140, which I won't read today, but you can find the same thing in Ujjwala Nilamani, where Swarup Damodar is explaining the different categories of gopis, and there's several different categories, and how the categories mix with each other, and the different ways that they get angry at Krishna, and how long they're angry at Krishna, how they show their anger at Krishna, and so forth and so on. When we are feeling anger in this world, and I'm going to assume that if we continue to live in this body for another day or two or week, that we will feel anger again. Is that most likely? Yes? Most likely, if we're in this body for the next week, we'll experience anger sometime during the week. I mean, it might be very mild. It might be, stupid people. You know, it might be a mild annoyance anger. It might not be full-blown rage. But we can move back and say this is a biochemical reaction in the body, and then meditate on some of these leelas of the anger of the Lord or the anger of the devotees. Srila Rupa Goswami, in the fifth wave of the Southern Ocean, near the end, I think it starts with text 73, he talks about how when we see a drama or hear a narration, we can experience some of the emotions of the characters. Everyone has this experience, I would assume. You've all seen a drama or a movie or a TV show or read a book where you felt some of the emotions of the characters, even if they were fictional characters. Am I correct? You felt them like they were yours. So Srila Rupa Goswami says this is the case. He said, and that also operates when you hear a narration or see a drama of transcendence. You will feel the emotions of those characters. This is not my recommendation, it's Srila Rupa Goswami's recommendation. Prabhupada says if we can feel the emotions of the inhabitants of Vrindavan even to a minute degree, then our life is successful. We're not reading this story in the Bhagavatam just because Srila Prabhupada says we should hear the Bhagavatam every day and we want to be good devotees and to check it off our checklist. Okay, went to Bhagavatam class today, read my verses. We're reading these things so that we can actually become kind of absorbed. What's happening with Balaram here? How is he feeling? Right? This is outside Dwarka at Raivataka Mountain, and he's enjoying with these girls, and he's relaxing. He's having some relaxing time, and this huge ape comes, and it's like breaking his pot and pulling the girl's clothing and insulting him. And then he's like, you know, you used to be my devotee, but you've been causing a lot of trouble. You know, let's end this. And how Balaram feels this anger. But it's a sweet, blessing anger. It's an exuberant anger. It's a loving anger. That because I love you, Dvidvita, I love you as you were my devotee, and everyone is ultimately my devotee in this loving anger. We got to stop this stuff you're doing. This is no good. You're hurting yourself. You know, you just couldn't get it together. Okay, I'm going to help you out. And I'm going to have some fun doing it. And we're going to be throwing around trees, and we're going to be throwing around rocks, and we're going to have a ball. And that kind of anger, and if we can turn to meditate on that anger, then our material anger, which is just a bunch of biochemicals and has nothing to do with us, we're just going to look at it and laugh and be like the ocean that the rivers go into and say, oh, that's an interesting river. Wow, what about Balaram with Vidvita Gorilla? Questions, comments? Yes, Vaisheshika Prabhu. Corrections, chastisements?
No correction.
Except, no corrections except. Okay.
About the Prasadi. Doesn't have a purport. So I started poking around and I found Prabhupada mentions it a few times before he takes prasadam.
Oh.
I had a fondness for it. I just saw a relationship.
Oh, nice. Oh, very nice.
That was parenthetical. Now I have a question.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad you told me that.
I was doing a little soul searching, trying to think of the last time I became angry. It didn't take me very long to figure that out. I was walking into the samadhi, and then a couple of ladies elbowed me in the side, like pushing me out of the way. And you mentioned kind of an annoyance anger.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't become enraged or anything like that. But there was a biochemical reaction.
Reaction, yeah. What are you doing?
You mentioned 3 levels of overcoming anger. The second of which was, or maybe the first of which was to detach oneself. But the third level, it sounded appealing. How, in that circumstance, if you've ever had that experience?
In India? No.
That somebody barrels right through you when you're standing there, and then there's a tweak of annoyance anger. How would you use the third aspect of anger by meditating on the Lord's anger to overcome something like that?
Okay. Well, what was Vidvita doing? He's pulling at their clothes. It was actually quite similar. You know, he was doing exactly that. He was pushing and shoving and pulling. Danika, he did that with Balaram, kicked him on the chest. That was a pushing and shoving. And now the third method only works, my dear friends, if you know Shastra. If you don't know Shastra, it won't work because you can't find anything. So if someone's just come to the movement for 3 days, you can't give them that technique. It won't work. But you can just step back and you feel the biochemicals. Okay, fine. That's going to happen. That's not going to stop. But then you just go, did Krishna ever get pushed? Yeah, he did. Balaram got pushed. Krishna got pushed. How did they feel? They went, there's this, where was I just seeing it? Somewhere this morning. With the Dainikasura, with Krishna and Balaram reeling them around. And then Balaram took him and wheeled him around. And just start going into that, and then you'll find without any effort on your part that the other annoyance is just, you won't even notice it. Maybe after a couple minutes you go, oh, that's interesting, it's just gone.
I just see an obstacle that I might see Balaram swimming in person.
No, it doesn't work like that. It's not that you get into their behavior, but you try to access their feeling. And the spiritual rasa is sweet. All the rasas are sweet. Also, Srila Rupa Goswami explains this. This is at the end of the Northern Ocean, where he's talking about the 7 secondary rasas, and he says, I see you, don't worry. Where he says, a lot of these don't seem very sweet. Like this pathos of Ram Leela. It seems like a tragedy. He says, but if it wasn't sweet, why is Hanuman repeating it over and over again? And what happens is when you start to taste that sweetness, the other thing it becomes laughable. And it recedes from your awareness. And then because there's an interplay with the physical body, then the physical body gets the message that, oh, now I'm happy. And the chemicals just easily dissipate, if you want to talk about how it works on a mechanical level. It immediately brings you into pleasure. Now, this is something that needs to be practiced. Yes? If you try to do this the first time with somebody threatening you with a gun, it probably won't work. But if you can do it, if we can practice it for the little things, the little minor angers, the little annoyances and the little irritations, which are like baby angers, and we practice it, and then when you practice it, you see how tasty it is. And then we become habituated it, and then for the bigger things, it becomes easier and easier and easier. And of course, until we're at a very high level, we may still mess up sometimes. And then what do you do when you mess up? You pick yourself up and you dust yourself off and you apologize to whoever you got angry at, and you work at doing better next time. Make sense? And make sure you don't break anything while you're angry. Yes, in the back, in the red. Yes. Is that all right? Well, you can just say yes or no. Is that all right? Better than all right. Okay. Hare Krishna.
My question is, how do we know if we are repressing or if we are renunciating?
How will we know if we're repressing or actually detached? It feels completely different. Subjectively, it feels completely different. Whenever people ask me, how do I know whether what I'm doing is proper or not, I always give two answers. There's the objective and the subjective. The objective is it's according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. And the subjective, I really like Bhagavad Gita 9.2. Raja Vidya Rajaguyam Pavitram Idamuttamam Prachaksha Vagamam Dharmam Susukam Kartamavyayam. If you're doing it right, Raja Vidya, you have a sense of knowledge. Raja Guyam, you have a sense of getting the essence of something. When you're actually detached, it's funny, you can still feel what's going on in your body, but you don't identify with it. And the more you practice it, you gradually hardly feel it at all. You have knowledge. Pavitram, you feel purified. If you're repressing anger, believe me, you will not feel purified. Dharmyam, it feels very authentic. You have this sense of, I'm doing what's authentic. Susukam, you will feel happy. You'll feel purified, you'll feel happy, you'll gain in knowledge, you'll gain the essence of things. You'll have that subjective experience. Is that all right? Okay, it is 9. Yes.
A small reflection. Thank you for your
Yes.
In Prema Bhakti Chandrika, Nanthamdas Thakur very nicely explains that there is space for anger also for devotees. You can what is that? Krishna Bhakta Dvesha. Krodha Krishna Bhakta Dvesha. That means people who are envious of Krishna or his devotees, we can exhibit the anger. So I was thinking Balaram's anger in this case is on the same lines because Dvita was actually disturbing the modesty of all the devotees of the Lord.
Yes. Yes. Well, Prabhupada also talks about that in his purport to Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam. And he also talks about it in terms of Arjuna fighting, that Arjuna had to have anger. However, we will often use those quotes to excuse our material anger and justify our material anger. No, don't do that. They're talking about anger as a rasa. Again, you can have 3 objects of anger as a rasa: Krishna, other devotees, and those who are inimical. But it should be a rasa, and it should be purifying. If it's polluting you, no matter what reason you think for having it, then it's dwaram nasanamatmana. Then it's a gate to hell. Be careful. Because the vast majority of our political and philosophical fighting in our movement is on the justification of things like this. Am I correct? Yes? And our mind is really, really good. It's like really expert at justifying any kind of nonsense we want to do. Everyone knows this? Yes? You all also have a mind like I have a mind. So it's our mind's expertise. Oh, I want to do some nonsense. Oh, here's a Shastra quote to justify it. So please be careful. Yes? All right, well,
Pick one more, otherwise I get angry.
You'll get angry, okay. Well, I just am worried about the other kind of Bhagavat Prasadam that...
Yeah, so I don't want to get angry.
No, okay.
Very, very quick comment. This is a very quick comment. Thank you for a wonderful comment. I really like when you're talking about how we should read Krishna's pastimes so we can experience the emotions of the Vrishvasas. And you also mentioned brothers, you experience a slight percentage of that. Can it was very enlightening.
Oh, thank you. Well, that's Sri Rupa Goswami and Sri Prabhupada. I'm just the messenger. So thank you. Actually, any mistakes in this class, I hope that you can ignore, and anything good in this class is due to Srila Prabhupada and our acharyas and the Shastra. Thank you very much. Shruti Kirti wants to say something. Yes. He's above the law. It's already like 9:08. Yes.
No, come, take it. Say it.
You are being ordered, Shruti
Say what
Kirti.
you gotta say.
When Srila Prabhupada was in his room and he heard some bad news about the Jew property, this was in New York, and of course the Jew was thousands and thousands of miles away. He couldn't do anything at that time, as far as I could see. But he was walking around his room, his hand in his tea bag, and he came up to my room and said, "When you're angry," he said, "you chant very loudly on your beads." And that's what he was doing. He was chanting on his japa beads, where you could hear, literally, you could hear the sound of his beads. I've seen him in other angry situations doing things very differently, but at that time, that was his response.
Oh, thank you. So we have yet another method. Chant very loudly on your beads. Chant Hare Krishna. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.